history. Well, I was born in Clifton Forge, Virginia, and October the 30th, 1921. The 10th of 12 children. Can you see this on the picture?
Mm-hmm.
I was the first boy after 7 girls in a row. Then there was 2 other boys and 2 older boys. So it was 5 boys and 7 girls in my family. So we grew up in Clifton Forge and Lowmore and Iron Gate, which is 3 little towns around the same area. Then my father discovered ore in Sweet Springs, West Virginia. And there's the mine where he was working. And we moved to Sweet Springs, West Virginia during the height of the Depression and lived on a big old resort and worked at the mine. After that we moved to Roanoke, Virginia. Did a lot of moving in my time after my father sold the mine. And then from there to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and finally to West Hartford, Connecticut, where I almost finished school, but ran away from home in my senior year and went back to Charleston, West Virginia to live with my sister. And there's where during the World War II, that I was almost about ready to be drafted in the Army, but my boss got me in the Navy. So that's how I wound up in the Navy.
What sister were you living with there?
My sister Lita and Paul Houchins. Her name was Houchins at the time. And her 2 children, Isabel and Denny. And then when I went into service from there, went to Charleston, West Virginia, and made 5 bullseyes on the firing range, and the sergeant asked me if I'd like to be a gunner. And I was all set to go into a different phase of the Navy. I was going to be in the, what the heck, I forget what they call it. It was something to do with electronics and communications. But then that sounded so exciting that I went to gunnery school. I wound up as a gunner on a commercial ship when they armed all the ships during the war. We got attacked down off Florida. Had to go into New Orleans and to dry dock, and then after we got our seams all resoldered, we went on to the Panama Canal with arms and ammunition. After that, I got on another ship in Brooklyn, New York, and went to North Africa. But on the way, we got attacked 3 or 4 times, and I did a lot of firing through the telescope, and I burned the pupils of my eyes. So they took me off the ship in Oran, North Africa, into an Army hospital. And my eyes didn't clear up in a couple weeks, so they shipped me back on a hospital ship to the St. Albans Naval Hospital in Long Island, New York. That's where, take my glasses on, that's where I met my wife, Rosalie Teresa Troji. She came over to help entertain the poor wounded servicemen. And I was there for about a year, and that's where we got married. She didn't want to go back to West Virginia, and I didn't want to work in New York, so we settled on Connecticut. I went back to Connecticut and tried to get in on the police force in West Hartford, but they wouldn't take me because of my eye problems. But in the meantime, my old boss from West Virginia called me and told me to get back in the telephone company, that I was making more money, and I had 4 years seniority all the time I was in the Navy, which I didn't know. So I went back in, went down to the Southern New England Telephone Company and went to work for them. And then we lived in West Hartford at the time. We had a couple of children, Bill and Bob and Jim. We had 3 children there, and then we bought a house in Manchester, Connecticut on Breton Road. And we're still here. After 7 children and many Christmases, I'm still here in Manchester, Connecticut. I've had a couple of heart attacks, but I'm still hanging in here. That's about the whole life story. I don't know where I'd go from there.
Well, can we go back over some of the parts? Can you talk about a little bit what it was like when you were in high school, how you were on the boxing team, and how you had a horse and all of that sort of stuff?
Well, when I was in Wilmore, Virginia, I was on the boxing team. And my first fight I had in Clifton Forge, Virginia, and I was up there boxing, and the other guy was knocking me all around the ring, but I could hear my sister in the background, Janet, say, "Chatty, don't let him knock you down." And that revived me, and I started fighting better after that. And for the next 21 fights, I won them.
21 in a row.
Yep. I lost my first one, and I won the next 21. I had 22 fights altogether.
You used to tell me that by the end, the only guys who would fight against you were guys who were way out of your weight class.
Were overweight, yeah. When they brought them in from Clifton Forge and Covington, the other towns around, the guys in my weight didn't want to fight me, so I had to fight overweight guys. One time I refused because the guy was much too big. But I've regretted that ever since. I'm sorry I didn't fight him, because I think I still could have given him a run for his money. But those were the good old days. I don't do any fighting anymore. I'm just a lover now.
Now, what about your dog and your gun and the rattlesnakes? You used to go hiking?
Oh, gosh, that's when I was in high school. That's down in Wilmore, Virginia. We lived right in the mountains practically. And at that time, you could walk around the town with a .22 rifle. I had my rifle, my dog, and we spent most of our summers up in the woods there trying to shoot birds and squirrels and rabbits. And had a lot of fun in those days and didn't worry about much of anything.
What was your dog's name?
Spreadpaw.
Spreadpaw.
Yeah.
You ever ran into rattlesnakes?
Yep. But Spreadpaw was not the good rattlesnake dog. We had another little fox terrier by the name of Fritz. And he was the one that would jump in and grab the rattlesnake and shake him and then jump out. And I used to try and tell him, "Get away from there before you get killed." But he could handle them. Spreadpaw would just sit back and watch him. Spreadpaw wouldn't jump in.
Did you ever shoot a rattlesnake?
Oh yes, many times. Shot at a lot of them. I've hit a couple of them too, but I shot at a lot more than I hit. Because I only had a single shot .22 rifle, and every time I took a shot I had to open it and get another bullet and put it in. I didn't have the automatic rifles they have nowadays in those good old days. But of the 12 children in our family, nobody rode around in the cars. We walked where we wanted to go.
But you had a horse.
Well, I had a horse after my father discovered the manganese mine, and we started living pretty high on the hog then. But before that, the Depression was down. I took my shoes off when school was out, and I didn't put them back on until school started. I went barefooted all summer.
So that you didn't wear out the shoes?
Yes. I'd have to save my shoes till school started. And my father got really mad every time they changed the books, because we can hand the books now from one to the other. In those days, you had to buy your own school books. And when they changed the books, he really got hit, because everybody had to have new books. But we survived, and nobody ever went hungry, really. I don't think we did without much of anything.
How did all 12 of you eat at the same time, or different shifts?
Well, yeah, it was different shifts, because the girls never got up as early as the young boys. We'd come down, and Grandma would have the potatoes and gravy all cooked up together. When my oldest sister got married, her husband, Don McCabe, came to live with us for a while, and he said the first morning he got up and came down in that kitchen and saw all those kids in line fighting and scrambling for a place, to get up there, and Grandma slopping that potatoes and gravy in the place that it turned his stomach. He couldn't eat that. But after a couple of weeks, it dawned on him one day that he was in that line scrambling and fighting to get up there to get his potatoes and gravy. So it depends on how you live and where you live, what you're doing. So it works out. Well, that's about all there is. I had...
What about the experiences you had as a foreman with the telephone company, your relationships with the guys, particularly this sales campaign?
Oh, well, yeah, when I finally got to be a foreman at the telephone company.
How did you, what was your first job at the telephone company?
First job was a line gang. I had to string wire, and that's in Sweet Springs. That was in Charleston, West Virginia, when I was in the line gang. Then I started here in the installation and repair, and I finally got to be a supervisor. But when I was a supervisor in Windsor Locks, I was in charge of the plant sales department, where we had to sell extension phones and whatever we could do when we went out to the houses. And whatever little area in the state won, had the most sales, got an award and got your picture in the paper. So my department won it one year, and then we hadn't won it for a couple of years, and I told the guys, geez, if we win it this year, I'll give all of you a day off. So they went out, and darned if they didn't win it. To my surprise, I didn't think they'd ever win it, but they did. We won the state award. And the next day, the district man came over, and the photographer came up from New Haven to take a picture of the winning group and all. And at 8:30 the next morning, nobody showed up. And my boss said to me, "Where is everybody? What did you tell these guys?" I said, "Well, I told them they could take a day off, but I didn't know they're all going to take the same day off." And they all took off, I guess, today. Then I got a call from the test board saying the auto marker out at Bradley Field was out, and I had to send somebody immediately. These are emergency situations. And I had nobody to send. So then my boss said, "What are you going to do, Chad? What are you going to do about this?" I said, "I'm going to call up every one of those SOBs and tell them they're fired and I'm leaving. I'm not staying around here and taking this." About that time, they all came roaring over the hill. Even the district man was in on it, and the photographer. But they all stood me up for 15 minutes, making me think they all took the same day off.
And was there really an emergency at Bradley Field?
No, that was a fake too. There was no emergency. That was all part of the deal. I had a knot in my stomach for 2 weeks after that. But I finally got over it. To this day, when I meet some of these guys, they still kid me about that. And I had a plaque made, I should show you that says A.P. Whitesell, off with permission. When you get an AP day, you get a day off with permission. You know where that is?
Where is it?
It's out in the garage.
Oh, we'll get it later.
Yeah. But I could show it because I had the picture taken with that in it. So the AP stands for Off with Permission Day, and that's what I was going to give all the guys. That's what I was going to give all the guys for winning the sales award. And after they ran me through the mill with all taking the same day off, they drew me up a plaque that said A.P. Whitesell, and I had to put this on my desk for the rest of the time that I was working there. And then in 1982, on September the 1st, I finally retired from the telephone company after 40 years and 10 months. And I've enjoyed my retirement because now I joined the country club and I play a lot of golf. I go down to Myrtle Beach with some of my old group that I retired with and play down there. And we have bowling leagues and everything. But I've had 2 heart attacks, but I'm coming back from both of them.
Well, let's go back to how you started your family up again. How did you meet Mom?
I met my wife at the St. Albans Naval Hospital when she came over to help entertain the poor wounded sailors. She was on the committee over there, and the girls, when they had nothing else to do, they would go over and entertain the troops at some of the dances we had from the town of St. Albans. And that's where I met her. She danced up too close to me, and that was it. We fell in love and got married before I got out of the service.
And after you started your family, what kinds of things did you enjoy doing with your kids?
Oh yes, I did. When we lived in this house in Manchester, Connecticut, I had 5 boys and 2 girls, and I really got a big kick out of all of them playing ball. We played Little League baseball and scouts, and I learned how to tie knots and everything else, and taught knots to the kids from the Navy. But I really enjoyed that, sleeping out in tents and in the cold weather, rainy weather. I can remember up here at Camp Johnson one night it poured down rain and we had to find somebody that had a tent, because I think I was with you at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was with my oldest boy, Bill, and we didn't have a tent, so one of the neighbors said, come on in here. So we got in the tent to keep from getting soaked out. And we spent the night there, but that was fun too. Then one night I spent up at Camp Johnson, and it was so cold that we were in a cabin, but we had a fire going in the fireplace, and it was so cold. It was in January, and a couple of boys were assigned to get up in the morning and make the fire, and they all finally went to sleep, and I got in my sleeping bag and took a couple of breaths of that freezing cold air, and I said, God, we'll freeze to death. So I got up and kept the fire going all night. When the 2 boys woke up the next morning and they saw I had the fire, I said, oh, thanks for getting up early and making the fire, Mr. Whitesell. I said, I never let the fire go out. I kept it going all night. I had 5 boys and 2 girls, and all of them have done very well.
What about Little League and Farm League teams and your coaching?
Yeah, I coached Farm League teams and helped to coach the Little League teams, especially for my oldest boy, Bill, and Bob. Bob played in there too. And Jim. Even Chad tried the Farm League, but he didn't follow through as much. And I don't know what Gene and Judy did. They had to go do the things with their mother. But she didn't work until after all the kids were in school. And then my wife went back and got her education and went teaching. And now she has taught for 20 years, and she's ready to retire. And I think that's about our life history.
How about golf? What is it that you like about golf?
Well, the thing I like about golf is it's a good physical exercise for you, and it's very entertaining. And I certainly enjoy it when we play in the tournaments, and especially if you win something. It's a lot of fun. You don't even have to win much, even if it's just a couple of dollars or a package of golf balls, as long as you're winning.
How about all the guys who you hang around with there on the golf courses?
Yeah, there's a lot
Bob
of guys.
Deedley. How about this tournament that you were in with Bob Deedley?
Oh yes, well that was the senior tournament at the Manchester Country Club, and you keep having play downs at the end of the year to see who's the champion. And we kept beating our opponents until it finally got to be head and head with Bob Deedley and I. And Bob Deedley has never beat me in golf except that one time. He did beat me. And he was the champ and I was the runner-up. And since then he has never beaten me. But he beat me on the big day, so I guess I can't take the pressure. But I did. And I enjoy it. And I hope to go back again this year and play golf again. So.
Well, what
and bowling.
Bowling too?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've sort of lived by? I remember one of them that I quote to my kids, which is that one of your sayings is, if it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing right. I remember you saying that to us a lot.
Yeah. Well, I must have heard it or read it. If it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing right. That's kind of true, isn't it? If you're going to do it, you got to do it right. And hopefully, whether you're playing golf or bowling or working around the house or whatever, you want to do the best you can with what you can do with it, to the best of your talents anyway. Everybody can't be a winner, but you can try and you can play it hard. Do what you can do.
Okay,
That's
thanks.
about it.
Thanks very much, Dan.
Okay. Well, another little episode that I was just thinking of since I signed off is that the times that we spent at Rocky Point, Long Island, because I met my wife, like I said, in St. Albans, Long Island. And here's